It's Wednesday here in Redding, California, and super excited to talk to you about just keys of overcoming the giant of procrastination. I just want to say thank you again for all of you that have been with us.
Good morning.
What in the world would I do without you? In case you didn't hear that, good morning, everyone. A special shout out to our wonderful friend Jan. um, want to talk today about 3 keys to overcoming the giant of procrastination. Actually, it was so funny. This came out of a conversation that I had with Steve yesterday, and he just kind of challenged me about some of the things that I was talking. He's like, "Yeah, you should talk. You should talk about procrastination, whatever it was." And I'm like, "Yep, you know what? I actually am going to." And so you guys get this straight out of my own life and what the Lord is dealing with me and what He's moving in me and what He's saying and speaking to me right now personally, and which of course it always is, but it's always just a little bit different when all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm dealing with procrastination. Let's teach about it. So good morning, Angela. So great to see you. Cindy, great to see you. Claire, always wonderful to have you on here. Good morning, Matthew. Great to see you. I love the fact that every single one of us deal with procrastination. But what I find super interesting is that procrastination is one of those things that's like, it's just accepted as we all deal with it. It's kind of like, it's just, oh, I'm just procrastinating. And when the Lord starts dealing with you about something in your life, it becomes very interesting, though, how He thinks so differently about things than we do. And He has so much to say about procrastination in our life. And so I just want to talk about the victory of God, that He has laid out a plan for us to kill this giant. And it's a giant because a giant comes, if you look in, our wonderful story where we get, the killing your giant, is David. David runs against this giant that all of the army of God was terrified of, and he had actually robbed their ability to move forward, robbed their ability to have success really in any area of their life. So they're stuck at camp and they're fearful and they're hiding and they have no forward momentum. And here this young kid who knows something that they don't know, who really knows someone that they clearly don't know. And because he is armed with the victory of God. And I love that. It wasn't that David was so crazy amazing in a slingshot, and maybe he was, but he comes to this giant and he says, hey, you come against me with a sword and spear. You come with all your strength and your muscles. You come to me with that doctor's report. You come to me with that thing that says my marriage can't make it. You come to me with the lie that I'm too old. But David says, I am coming against you in the name of the God of Israel. And he knew something about who was with him. And so it didn't matter what that giant was coming down. And I release that over you guys today. It doesn't matter what the giants are in your life. They are coming down because you know him. And not just because you know him, but you understand that he is with you and he is for you. He's for your victory. He's for your triumph. And one of these walls that are coming down our life is procrastination. So anyways, I want to talk a little bit about what procrastination is. And every one of us are familiar with it. If you ever like, procrastination, it's an enemy, it's a sin in my life and I'm going to take care of it tomorrow. I know you're right. I absolutely know that I need to start eating healthier and start thinking about the longevity of my life. And I'm going to start making those choices tomorrow. I know I need to have those conversations, those tough conversations, and I'm going to get right on it tomorrow. And so we all know what procrastination is like. So the debilitating lie of what procrastination actually does. I was listening to this guy talk about how he went through the Bible to try to discover what are the most powerful, impacting words, really, what he was talking about. Like, what is the most joyful word in the Bible? What is the most healing word in the Bible? And he stumbled across the most terrifying, detrimental word in the Bible is tomorrow. And he just kind of unfolds how tomorrow is the one thing we have no control over. And I love the fact that there is grace of God for us to walk in obedience today. There's grace of God for us to walk in faith today. There's grace of God to hear his voice, to move forward in our life. There's grace in our life to tell our family that we love them, to tell our friends how thankful we are for them. There's grace on that today, and there's zero grace on that tomorrow. today. There's only enough grace for today. And the interesting thing is I have no control over tomorrow. And procrastination gives this illusion as if we actually have control over tomorrow, and we don't. The Bible says that, in James, why do you say I'm going to go do this or I'm going to go do that? You don't even know what tomorrow has for you. You don't know what's coming tomorrow. And so our job is to no longer put off tomorrow what we can do today. And I love even things like when you go through and you read the Bible and it's like, hey, don't tell a friend, go and tomorrow come back and I'll give it to you if you have it right now. Instead, be mindful that we actually have the grace of God to live a very now powerful, profound life. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about, first of all, before we talk about the keys of walking completely free of procrastination, I want to talk a little bit about why procrastination is an enemy of success. I mean, this is funny. If you want to fail at life, procrastination is your way there. If you want to fail at relationships, procrastination will get you there. If you want to fail in your finances, procrastination, oh man, it's like your best friend. It can get you there. Procrastination can literally get you to any failure and very quickly. And I love the fact that God, he's so funny in the way. He's like, yep, procrastination is a great tool if you want to lose. But if you want to win, the grace of God is available for you. So why do we procrastinate? One of the reasons we procrastinate is indecisiveness. I just don't know what to do. Have you ever had this conversation with your spouse? Hey, what do you want to do? What do you want to eat? And it's like, I don't know. And then pretty soon you don't end up doing anything. And then you're frustrated at him and he's frustrated at you and your date night just went down the tubes. Or is that just me? I'm pretty sure that's happened to every one of us. But and that's a simple little thing. But a lot of times I don't know which direction to take. I don't know if I should take that job. And a lot of times it's just indecision. I don't know. So since I don't know, I don't do anything. And when I don't do anything, it's easier to just, medicate with Netflix or something. And so that's one of the reasons that we will procrastinate is indecisiveness. I don't know what to do, so I don't do anything. And then this one to me is a very huge one, perfectionism. That until I can do it perfectly, or until I know how to do everything perfectly, or until I need to know everything that there is to know about this, then I'm not going to do anything. And I feel like perfectionism is actually code for fear of failure. I think so many times in our life, I don't move forward because it's not perfect or I don't have all the pieces in place. And, and there is a Bible verse in Ecclesiastes. And I know you guys are all really familiar with this, but I found it super interesting. Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 4, and the Amplified says, he who watches the wind, waiting for all conditions to be perfect, will not sow. And he who looks at the clouds will not reap and harvest. This is about somebody who had all of the potential to sow and didn't because it wasn't perfect conditions. And since he didn't sow because it wasn't perfect conditions, he also didn't reap. And you take that very same thing and apply it to your life, apply it to maybe your marriage or relationships. And it's like, until the right moment comes for me to have that conversation, or the right time comes for us to have this tough conversation, I'm not going to do it. And so you don't sow those seeds of forgiveness or sow those seeds of gratitude. And then there's no reaping it. And there's grace right now. And I just hear this so strong in my spirit. There is grace right now for massive upgrades in our marriages, massive upgrades in our relationships. If we don't consider and wait for all the circumstances to come into perfect alignment, that will never happen. There's never going to be a perfect time to fight for what's important in your life. There's never a perfect time to fight for that person that you love who maybe there's in conflict with. And so anyways, perfectionism. And then finally, and this one's going to be a little bit painful, but it's true nonetheless, just flat out laziness. Sometimes it's not fear. Sometimes I just don't want to. I don't really like it. It's so fun. It's so enjoyable. It tastes so good. And I like to eat sugar at midnight. And not all of you like to do that. But sometimes, we get ourselves into trouble because I know what to do. I know the right things. I just don't want to do it. I don't want to put in the effort, and that's just real life. That's just true. A lot of us, we just don't want to put in the effort. I don't want to have to have this conversation one more time. And sometimes it's not fear. I just don't want to do it. And and that's okay. The Lord knows where we are, and he's not ashamed or afraid to give us not just his ability and his grace, but also his enthusiasm for the things that we're not so enthusiastic about. And sometimes I love how Steve talks about that there there's people who are successful and non-successful, and the successful people find a way to do things that they don't want to do. We all have things that we don't want to do. We all have areas in our life that we don't want to put the effort in, but successful people will find a way to do it. And so we can always find a way, or we can make excuses. There's always a way forward, and there's always an opportunity for excuses. And one of the things that I so love about this message here that we teach and that Steve and Wendy has changed our lives, so there's literally always a way forward, multiple ways forward, and there's always a solution. And we find ourselves in that place like, I don't even want to do this. The Lord knows that. Bring that. God, I don't want to do this. I don't want to put the effort. It feels worthless. I know I should, but I don't want to. And he loves that we'll bring that to him. And he's like, I have a strategy. I have a way forward, Connie. So I'm going to take a drink of my coffee because I always just pick it up and set it down and pick it up and set it down. And then I watch my videos and it's so very funny. So I'm going to take a drink. I did it. Success. Okay. All right. So I know that there are other reasons, but those are the three I want to talk about. Is it, just indecisiveness, perfectionism, and just I don't want to do it. I'll stop saying lazy because it's such a painful word. But I'll just, we just don't want to do it. But I don't want to capitalize on those. This is just finding areas in our life why we haven't moved forward, finding areas in our life why am I procrastinating about something? And so many times what we don't realize is that procrastination, and I'm going to go back to this middle one, because procrastination, what I said in the beginning is procrastination is something it's just normal, just put off. I'll put off, I'll just do it tomorrow. But a lot of times it is fear of failure that stops us from moving forward. It's fear of the unknown. I don't know how this is going to turn out. If I have this tough conversation with my boss, I could lose my job. And so I'll stay in the same place, in the same circumstances, knowing that I'm meant to do more, or knowing that God has put something in my heart that I'm supposed to do, or knowing there's a problem and I need to adjust, I need to deal with it, but I don't know what the outcome is going to be, and so I don't move forward. And the reason why I want to talk a little bit more about this one is because when we recognize this, that my life's momentum and all of my forward motion in life, and really any direction that I wind up in my life going, it is actually completely determined by my belief system. If I am allowing procrastination or fear of the outcome of that, or fear of what's going to happen if I have this conversation, or fear of starting that YouTube channel, or fear of starting this business, what's happening is I'm procrastinating something, but I have made a decision to partner with fear. I've made a decision to partner with a liar who hates me, and his only job in life is to steal and to kill and destroy. And a lot of times what we haven't recognized is I've actually partnered with fear. And while I say this is, how many times has there been something that you need to do? I don't know, maybe it's a report. Maybe, going back to, college days or high school days, whatever it is, or there's something that you absolutely have to do, and it's a big job, and you keep putting it to the list of your to-do list. And I was laughing. I told Steve the other day, there's with writing, some things that I know that the Lord wants me to start working on, and I finally get the time carved out of my life, and I'm ready to do it, and suddenly I need to build that fence. And I need to build that fence right now. I've never built a fence before, but there's a spot in my yard that's falling down, and I actually need to build it right now. And all of a sudden, this crazy dumb stuff will come at me that I need to take care of the laundry right now. It's fine to leave it on the couch for 3 days, but I have to do it right now. And what is it? It's actually finding any kind of distraction, because this thing scares me. This thing, I actually don't believe that I have what it takes to move forward in this. And so I'll allow any other distraction, and I'll allow the most important things to become the bottom of my list. Well, with David, I think about David, the most important thing was at the top of his list, and he ran at his giant. And that's what we're doing. God is releasing grace right now to literally run at your giants, but running at procrastination. I heard somebody say once that the real definition of poor is passing over opportunities regularly. And that really struck me, because poor is not just the number on your bank account. Poor is a lifestyle of choosing the lesser road, choosing the safety zone. And so it's passing over opportunities regularly. When we have a place in our life where I understand whatever God has called me to do, he has graced me to do it. Whatever he's called me to, he has graced me to do it. So I want to talk about what are some keys to actually overcoming. And there's so many different directions to go. And I know there's so many different keys and so many different reasons, but we're going to talk about this is number one, it is what you believe and who you believe. You think about anything in your life at all that you procrastinated. Maybe it's something, oh, it's funny. I have to go back because I didn't finish my thought. You have a paper that you need to write. You've had 2 months to write this paper. You knew this assignment was coming up and you kept putting it to the bottom of your list and doing anything else to get to that. But all of a sudden, it's like midnight on the night before that paper is due, at 6 o'clock in the morning, and a crazy, amazing thing happens. Suddenly you're able to bust that thing out. And you stayed up all night long and you have a headache the next day, or you're grumpy, you turn that paper in and the paper's good. But the funny thing is, you always had the capacity and the ability to write that paper, but it wasn't until fear got a big enough voice that you move forward. And I had somebody say something several years ago that as long as you move forward when there's enough pressure, you have constantly made a decision that fear is the biggest motivator in your life. And I remember that was so offensive to hear. And yet it was so very true, because I have been like a habitual procrastinator in some things in my life. And I did all of my school that way, did every paper the last possible minute, and I would put it off and put it off and put it off. And there's this thing that we talk about, there's how do you make a decision the way you live your life when there's emergencies coming at you. There's all kinds of urgent things yelling for your attention. And then there's also these important things that are not yelling for your attention at all, like your relationship with your children, like your relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ. It's like if I get in a car crash and there's things that need to happen right now, that is so very urgent. And, that might be a little bit big, but I actually not going to take that time in the middle of a car crash to call up my mother or call up my dad and say, man, I'm sorry, I shouldn't talk to you that way. Instead, I've got urgent things that are stealing all of my attention right now. But a lot of times we will move forward in our life where either the urgency in our life or everybody else's urgency in our life will be the thing that takes up the most of our time. And the important things that aren't screaming for our attention, like my relationships, like my health, like my eating plan, like exercise, Lord, help us. Those are the things that are actually the most important things in our life, is how we love ourselves well, how we treat ourselves well, the relationships that we have. And then obviously the most important one is our relationship with the Lord. But it's crazy how that time never seems to offer itself up for those things. Like I never seem to have a plethora of time to spend time with the Lord, or to work on my marriage, or to work on my relationships with my children, or to work on my health, or to take extra time to exercise. But man, do I have time to deal with catastrophe. I mean, I'm like the queen of dealing with chaos and catastrophe. And it's so funny. We'll actually get good at being busy and just go getters, and realize that these other areas in my life, I've procrastinated and put them off because they're not yelling and screaming for me. And so that one's free. That's a side note. And it's because these kinds of urgencies, let me go back. Making a decision of what actually gets to have priority in my life is a decision that only you can make. Only I can make the decision and walk out that decision of what is priority in my life. And so most important thing is number one, here's the 3 keys. Number 1 is believe. Number 2, actually, it's so funny. I said 3, but I'm going to give you a 4th one for a bonus because I added it in last minute. Going, man, I just think we need that. But believe, speak, obey. Believe, speak, obey. And then I'm going to add the other one in a minute. But believe, I think this is so important, is that so many times, and let's just think for a moment, is there a book you're supposed to write? Is there a conversation that you need to have? Is there, whatever it is there a new job change that you're supposed to make? Is there classes that you're supposed to take and things that you've kind of put off? Where our forward momentum comes straight out of is, what is it that I believe about myself? And that's what when we really boil everything down. If I actually believed I could do it, I would have done it. If I actually believed it was important enough to do it, I would have done it. And so here's a key for you. You do not have to believe in your ability to do what God is calling you to do. You do not have to put any stock in the belief that you are actually able to do it. Where you need to put your stock in is, I actually believe in His ability to do it in me, his ability to do it for me, and his ability to cooperate and partner with me. And I love this. It's, the Bible says it's not by might, not by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord. So many times when we have big things in our life, like we'll go through our whole day just doing stuff and not even thinking about it. I never actually have to make confessions to get in my car and drive. I mean, I've been driving for so many years. I get in my car and I go somewhere. I don't even think about my ability to drive. I'm pretty convinced that I can get from point A to B or anywhere I need to go. But you write a book, now I have to, like, these different things that I know that I'm supposed to do. I know that I'm called to do it, but all of a sudden that takes effort. And a lot of times effort will be the thing that I kind of, that's a little bit too much for me. And so how about I just go get a car and drive somewhere because I'm really good at that. How about I go get a snack because I'm super good at eating snacks. But to have really tough conversations and have confrontational meetings with people that could go a wrong way, it's easier to just go do something I'm good at. And so we'll procrastinate it. But if I believe this, if I believe that God has not only called me to do something, but it is by his grace and his anointing, his strength, his strategies, I'll begin to move forward. And the more that I practice moving forward, the more I become convinced that I hear him and convinced that he's able to do things for me. And a lot of times it's like, okay, Terry, I love that you just said that, cleaning my house. That is such a powerful one, because I was actually one of my examples as I was listening to this. There's this woman that I have just such great respect and honor for her, and she's in the ministry. But she said her life was in a mess. Her marriage was in a mess. She had no dreams for her life, no future ambitions at all. Her body was a mess, and her house was a disaster. And she'd just been living this way for so long. She'd watch TV all night, crash and get up in the morning and go to work, and just depressed. And that she was separated from her husband and just desperate, and started crying out to God. And the crazy thing, as she's crying out to God, trying to get, how do I fix my life? How do I move forward? How do I even hear the call of God on my life? And you know what the Lord told her? Clean up your house. And it was so, like, to her, it's like, that doesn't sound like God. That sounds like my mother. And yet she thought, okay, I know I heard you. And he told her, I can't remember exactly what the phrase was, but it was like, clean up and clear out. And she knew in her heart that he was saying, get rid of the clutter and clean up your house. And so she had no idea that believing that he had spoken to her and believing that he would help her, that would motivate her to move forward, and that would end up leading to a worldwide organization ministry that is impacting the planet, rescuing girls out of trafficking. I mean, it's just crazy, the long-term goal. And a lot of times we're wanting that. I need the big answer. What do you want for my life? What's the next huge step? And a lot of times it's like, pick up the phone and call your mom. Pick up the phone and call your son. Have that conversation with your boss. Sit down and read, the Gospel of John. Or, maybe it is clean up your car. Something so simple. And sometimes it's so simple that can't be God. But the thing is God has bigger plans in mind. Some, it's just to train you in hearing his voice and getting wins and victories on your belt. Some, it's literally a tide to the next step in your life. Clutter robs us of our peace. Crazy chaos in our life robs us of our peace, and God will deal with us to clean up certain things in our life to make room for peace, not because he's embarrassed of our house or of our car, but because of what happens to us. You get in a dirty car, your car is a mess, and you're like, fast food wrappers all over the place. It steals your peace. And then you don't want people to get in your car. And so then it causes shame. And it's like, God doesn't actually want us to have to live in that kind of thing, because we got great things in our life. And so, yeah, pick up the McDonald's wrappers. You'll be crazy amazed at how that will change your life. So anyways, that one's free. Thank you, Terry, for that. Okay. So I don't have to believe in my ability for everything. I do need to believe in his ability and his strategy. And then I begin to do exactly what we say all the time, taking the things that we're hearing and speaking them, making declarations. But where do I start? If I don't even know exactly what God wants for my life, I don't know what the next step is, where do I start my declaration? God is for me. He is in me. He is with me. He is motivating me. I am a success in life. Okay, maybe I haven't been one up to this point, but man, I'm a success in life. Why can you say that? Because Christ always leads me into triumph, and he is leading me into places of great success. Favor comes from the Father. People that need to like me, they'll like me. People that need to favor me, they'll favor me. Ideas that I need to have to start this business, God will give them to me. I can actually make this massive blanket, overwhelming strategy for declaring the goodness of God in my life, and watch what begins to happen when I just begin to believe He's for me, He has a way forward. And I make these declarations. I love the fact in Mark 11:23-24, when it talks about if you say, it's those who say, it's those who speak. 3 times the saying it is for praying. If you say unto this mountain, be removed, cast into the sea, don't doubt in your heart, but you believe that the things that you say will come to pass, you'll have whatever you say. I love the fact that God has created us to be like Himself, that our words are so powerful. They're directing the path of our life. And I think that it's so interesting when Solomon says that we're to guard our heart with all diligence, for out of it flow the issues of life. Out of it direct the issues of our life. Well, we know the Bible also says that out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So my heart becomes so very important in what I allow in my heart and what I allow out of my heart. And what comes out of my heart is literally going to be belief. Do you want to know what somebody believes? Just be quiet and let them talk. Literally just let them talk, and people cannot help but tell you what they believe, because we speak and spew out of the abundance of our heart. And so guard your heart, fill your heart, be intentional to put what God is saying in your heart. And when you don't know the specifics, they're coming. God is giving me direction. Why? Because God promised this. He said that He'll lead me and He'll guide me. And that causes massive forward momentum. I may not know exactly where I'm going, but I know Him, and He said He'll lead me. So I know I'm going the right direction. Why? Because I'm following His voice. Okay, and then this one I find so extraordinarily powerful in your life. Obey, but not just obey, quick obedience. Quick obedience is paramount in our life. Delayed obedience is still disobedience. And the reason, and I'm going to stop this and I'm going to do part 2 next week. But obedience is so profoundly important in our life, because if God takes the time, I want to think about this for a minute. If God takes the time to give you any direction in your life, that is the King of Kings. And He's saying something to you. He's giving you a direction. He has plans. And if God has spoken to you, you get a call your mom, clean your house, clean out your car, whatever it is. If God is saying something to you, that goes right to the top of my priority list, because the King of Kings has just spoken to me. And when I obey Him, I don't actually have to know the outcome, but I know that God is moving miracles for me right now. If God just got involved, oh my goodness, miracles are happening. So quick obedience, and that God never asks you to do something that you are not well able to do because of Him. So I'm going to wrap it up with here, and then I'm going to come back next week and talk again about overcoming the giant of procrastination. And I just release the grace of God on all of you and on me, that this giant has come down in our life, and God is leading us into extraordinary victory. Love you guys. Be the biggest, most profound prophetic voice you've ever heard. Champion yourself and champion others. And we will see you next week. Love you so much. Have a wonderful week. Bye.